Alrighty, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for clicking on today's video. I am very excited to have you here. Thank you so much for being here. But today we are going to be talking about someone that is a self-proclaimed like ex-fat acceptance kind of person, someone that was in that whole thing. And the person that we're going to be talking about is Momo Problemos. And they also talk about a lot of other things on their TikTok as well. No Nonsense Leftists with Limited Chill is what they have in their bio. But the thing that I wanted to talk about was this viral video that I had a few people actually message me about, which is about obesity and having privilege. Now, I think that this is an interesting kind of concept because, you know, when it comes to privilege, I think that there can be a level there that you can argue, but I think that it's a little bit more cut and dry than just like kind of a black and white situation. I think that there's a lot that kind of goes into that. But the description of this video is being able to eat yourself into obesity takes a certain level of privilege. That's not a bad thing. It just is. Everyone has privilege in some way, and recognizing that can be a way to empower ourselves and gain perspective in our place in this world. I think a lot of people in fat acceptance have forgotten to appreciate what they have and instead choose to complain and refuse personal responsibility or personal accountability. So let's go ahead and see what she has to say.
I have a hot take for you. If you are someone who is able to access enough food to be obese or morbidly obese, you have privilege.
Now, right there, I don't even, like, if this was in a vacuum, I wouldn't disagree with that at all. Because I think, like, if you're able to eat versus someone that's not able to eat, yes, you have more privilege than the person that's not able to eat. But sadly, the world that we live in is not in a vacuum, and there are a lot of things that go into that. And the other thing is, I think that looking at things this way and this kind of worldview of, you know, you have privilege or you don't have privilege, and looking at it that way, I think a lot of times it strips away the realities that people face. Like, yes, if you are living in the United States and you know, have enough money to eat, you have more privilege than someone that is living in a third world country that does not have those opportunities. Absolutely. I think that I would find it really hard to find someone that would disagree with that, at least in my mind. But I think that when you start looking at it that way and just breaking it down to that, it takes away, in my opinion, the humanity of the people that are genuinely struggling with obesity. And, you know, maybe people don't like that kind of thinking of struggling with obesity, but I myself can say that when I was really big, I genuinely struggled with it. I was someone that, yes, I wanted to lose weight, and I genuinely tried, and I would put in a lot of effort to lose weight, and I was not able to do it. And so it was a really frustrating thing for me to go through that and like just say, well, you're privileged because you're able to eat enough to not lose weight. It would have felt very deflating, I guess is the best way to put it. It just would not have felt very helpful. And I don't know how helpful this conversation is, especially framing it this way. If the end goal is to help people, I think there are better ways to go about that and better ways to share your opinions and share what you're thinking than a video like this, in my opinion. But with that being said, let's keep going.
I know that's probably a tough concept to like understand, but you have privilege, especially over people that can't even afford food. Okay, if you have the ability to eat in excess of your like normal caloric intake to the point where you're able to maintain an extremely high body weight, you have a lot of privilege to be able to do that.
So again, I don't disagree, but my argument is always going to be like, okay, well, what does that do for the person? Like, say if you're genuinely trying to help someone that's trying to lose weight, and if I was their coach and I said, well, you have more privilege than someone that can't eat enough food to survive. Okay, like what would I be doing for that person other than maybe shaming them and making them feel kind of bad about talking about how they're struggling to lose weight or whatever it might be, you know? Like, I don't know what the end goal here is.
Compared to people that literally cannot eat. I'm not saying this to be mean. I just think that it's important that we get a little perspective on where we're at and actually like how put down we are by society, because I don't think a lot of people who are overweight, like myself, think about the fact that we have a lot of privilege to be able to even be overweight.
I mean, I don't know. I think like if if you were to bring it up to me in this way and ask me that question when I was bigger, like, do you think you have more privilege than someone that literally is not able to get food for themselves? I would have said, yes, of course, I have more privilege than them. And then I would have felt kind of silly for even complaining about my weight or something like that. But I still don't think it would have helped me do anything to make a change. So it's like, it's one of those things that's like, yeah, maybe you're right, but I guess maybe at what cost? What is like, yes, you're right, but now what? Right? That's kind of where my mind is going here.
That's not a bad thing. It just is. I'm not saying this to offend anyone. I'm just trying to give you a little bit of perspective. So, I hope this helps.
So, and then looking at the comments, some of the top comments on this post. So a lot of people seem to have disagreed. And then someone said, TBH, it's the opposite. Healthier foods are more expensive. Healthier foods require prep. And some people don't have the time. Being overweight isn't always because of food. Sometimes it's because of, and then there's nothing more. So close, babe. Processed food is cheaper. Time is money. Most of us working all day don't have the luxury of gym time, food prep. Hope this helps. So again, I don't even necessarily agree with this completely. Processed food can be a lot cheaper. Time definitely is money. But I think that when you start to think that like it's impossible to eat and find foods that are not calorically incredibly dense, like I think a lot of people start to, and this is why I really don't like the whole like, oh, you need to have like organic and all of your meals. This is why I complain about a lot of about the full day of eating videos that are just so curated and perfect, because I'm like, dude, this gives the impression that you have to eat like this to be healthy or lose weight, and that really frustrates me. You can have like, if you watch my full day meetings, you can have a very bare bones, basic, simple, easy, quick diet that is maintainable and gets you to lose weight, that does not cost a ton of money. And so yes, like for a lot of people, they think that buying certain foods make it like a lot easier to lose weight, and like those foods are a lot more expensive. I don't really like that kind of thinking, because I do think that there are absolutely ways to eat on a budget and still lose weight, right? But kind of still going, right? Thinking about how I have to pay $2 for Pop-Tarts versus $6 for apples. So again, like, yes, this is true, but you can definitely find like, how many apples are you getting for $6, right? If you're like, I want to get the organic, the best, healthiest ones, then yeah, maybe you're not getting much. But if you're getting very basic apples, you know, they're not going to cost that much. So again, like, it's interesting because I agree with some of the things that she is saying, and I disagree with some of the things that are being said here as well. So like, obviously I'm kind of in the middle here, but I thought it was interesting because she actually ended up uploading a series on her TikTok, and this last one actually I feel did a good job of explaining a little bit more of the video that we just watched. So as you can see, it's a 4-part series, and the first 3 parts, honestly, they just are a little all over the place. They kind of go over the history of fat acceptance and how it got started. It's not really relevant to this video. If you want to watch them, feel free. You can go to her profile. I'll have it linked in the description. But I think this video does a good job of explaining a little bit more of maybe what she was trying to say in that first video that we watched, this kind of viral video. And with that being said, I was watching this really hoping that there would be like like, this is why I stayed in fat acceptance, but I don't think we ever really learned much about that, to be honest, and so that was kind of a bummer. But let's go ahead and watch this video as well, kind of, which I feel does a little bit better job of explaining maybe what she meant, and maybe tries to explain what she was trying to say in that first video.
The last piece of this that we're going to talk about, and I'll be brief, is classism, and how fat acceptance uses poor people as a way to prop up their movement. Historically, fatness has been seen as a sign of wealth. And if you look at a lot of the figureheads in fat acceptance, a lot of them come from a lot of privilege. I know maybe they didn't start out that way as children, but they have a lot of privilege now. For example, Samira, Tess Holliday, Anna O'Brien, just to name a few. All of them have a lot of privilege. Tess Holliday was a supermodel. Anna O'Brien is sponsored by people like Starbucks. And Samira went to Harvard. I don't know where.
Yeah, so I mean, I definitely don't disagree that a lot of the people that are very popular in the fat acceptance movement are very privileged individuals, and it's very frustrating hearing them. I don't know. It feels like one thing that I've noticed with a lot of the really popular fat acceptance people is it feels like they talk down to their followers. I don't know if anyone else has picked up on that, but that's something I feel like I've noticed, and I don't know, it really kind of puts me off.
Along the way that this got twisted, but if you have more money, you have more access to resources like food. And in the United States, we have a higher rate of obesity compared to other parts of the world. The United States has an obesity rate of 42%, and we are the wealthiest country in the world. The Central African Republic is one of the poorest countries in the world, and they have an obesity rate of 8%. With these lower levels of income and education in the United States, we do see a higher rate of obesity. And I have to deduce that this is because food is the most easily accessible substance used to cope with life stresses. The lowest.
I think that's part of it, but then when you look into things like food deserts and other things that really affect like people that are living in these positions where they don't really have access to healthier, quote unquote, healthier foods, and like the only thing that they're getting is like they're gonna be able to find maybe some Lunchables, maybe they're gonna find some canned food, but that's about it. Like that's absolutely going to make it more difficult. And so it's like, okay, well, I'll just go to 7-Eleven and I'll grab whatever they have there and I'll get some chips, and like I don't know. It's just when I see stuff like this where it's like, oh, well, you know, the US we have so much money and people are obese here, but there's this poor country and people aren't obese there. I feel like comparing the two, it honestly doesn't really make much sense. Like the problems that are happening here are very much specifically here, and that's fine. Just like the problems happening in another country are those countries' problems, and I wouldn't compare that to what's going on here. It just doesn't feel very productive.
Income in the United States, though, is still higher than the highest income in some of these poorer countries. I think that it's important to take a look at obesity as a world issue and not just an issue that affects people in the US.
I mean, I think that it's important to look at obesity as a world issue, but with that being said, everywhere in the world, obesity and how it's affecting people is going to be different based on the access that they have to these super highly processed, super highly palatable foods. And then, as we were talking about, if they don't have access to really anything else, and that's the only thing that they can really get, of course, like obesity is gonna be higher there versus a place where like really the only thing you're getting is fresh food that is caught, and you know, produce that is caught and like grown in that area. Like obesity is going to be different, but there are also going to be hosts of other issues as well. So it's like, yes, obesity is a worldwide issue, but I think you have to like really tackle it. You have to look at each individual region and place and see what is that place struggling the most with. Why are people in this area particularly obese, right? Versus just being like, well, why is the world obese? I think that it's more complicated than that, right?
I think a lot of people in the United States like to forget the privilege that we have here and the advantages that we have and the access to food. Even if you live in the food desert, it's still pretty incredible. We have it really good compared to a lot of places. And I think that a lot of people, because their life is hard here, like my life is hard, it's not as hard as other people's. We still have a lot to be thankful for, and we still have a lot of privilege.
Yeah, and I'm not disagreeing with that. I think that we absolutely have a lot to be thankful for, and there is a lot of privilege, and like two things can be true at the same time, right? Like you can be thankful for the position that you're in, but still be like, I would like that position to improve, you know? And I'm definitely not someone, and I want to make it very clear, I'm not someone that's sitting here that's saying like, if you live in a food desert, it's impossible to lose weight, or if you struggle with, being low income, it's impossible to lose weight. When I was losing weight, like I grew up in a family, I was taken away from my mom. We were incredibly poor. We lived in Section 8 housing. We had food stamps. Like we were pretty much about as poor as you can get without being homeless, right? And there were stints of that as well. And so I'm not someone that's saying like, if you're in that position, it's impossible to lose weight. But I think there's nothing wrong with me as someone that got out of that position and saw how difficult it was to still be like, I understand how difficult that is. And I'm not going to use myself, the fact that I was able to get out of it, as a way to say, well, see, everyone should be able to do it because I did it. Because I understand that what I did was not normal. And there's a lot of people that aren't going to be able to do that. And you might say, well, you're not giving them the benefit of the doubt, or you're saying that they're too lazy to do what you did, it's nothing like that. It's just understanding that what I was able to do was quote unquote extraordinary. While I don't think there's anything special about me, I clearly understand that there are a lot of people that are in a very similar position to me, people that I have conversations with all the time that want to lose weight, that really want to make this serious change for themselves, that just can't seem to do it. And I'm not going to sit here and be like, well, you just didn't try hard enough. Like, there has to be more to it than that, right? And so that's why I think like conversations like this, I just don't know how much it really helps in the end.
Even if our lives are not easy. All right, we're going to wrap this up. Fat acceptance uses emotional manipulation and marginalized communities as a way to advance their movement and normalize unhealthy behaviors. No one should hate someone for being fat or look down at them for being obese.
I agree.
Being obese, in my opinion, is not a moral failing. It is a moral failing, however, to misrepresent what fat phobia actually is and manipulate people by using marginalized communities as a way to further your movement.
That's definitely something that really frustrates me with fat acceptance, is it does feel like they will almost take any sort of marginalized community, whether she talked about a little bit about disability as well in one of the other videos. And that's something that I get really frustrated about, because I don't know, it just feels like any way that they're able to use a marginalized community and bolster their kind of argument, they will do that. That's something that I've definitely noticed for sure.
We should be uplifting people, promoting healthy behaviors and balance, and encouraging people to empower themselves in real, tangible ways. Fat acceptance preaches that your weight is out of your control, and this is a disempowering idea.
I agree.
Sure, maybe some of your life circumstances are out of your control, but your weight is not one of them. I strongly believe.
So I agree. People are probably going to disagree with me this. Like, I agree to an extent, but I think that there can be a mix of like things that are in your control, but also things that are out of your control when it comes to your weight. I think that we have a lot of control, but I think that the issue, and I don't even really know how to explain this, but I think one of the biggest issues is really showing people how much more control they have than they maybe think. And that's really difficult. And I've realized over time, like, the more someone is entrenched in their habits and the things that they are doing, the harder it is for them to believe that those things can change, because the longer they're doing something, the more it becomes the norm, and the more that they think this is just life, right? That's why I think that's a part of why it seems that people that are a little bit younger, right? I lost my weight when I was 20. It's a little bit easier, quote unquote, easier for them, because those habits are a lot less entrenched in, this is just what life is. This is normal. This is what I do, versus someone that's 50, 60 years old, right? They've been doing it for 30, 40 years. And that does feel like this is just what life is. And so I think that one of the biggest like hurdles and challenges that is to face someone that is like trying to lose weight is to really genuinely believe in yourself that there is changes that can be made, and like the life that you are living, there is something that you can do about it. And so I guess I agree with what she's saying, but I don't know, like, I don't want to say I disagree, but I think, again, it's nuanced, right?
That anyone can overcome obesity. It might be hard. It might be one of the hardest things you have to do in your life, but anybody can do it. And the rhetoric in fat acceptance is that you shouldn't have to, but at what cost?
Yeah, and so that's where that ends, and where she ends there, I definitely agree with. You know, like some of the rhetoric in fat acceptance is like, you shouldn't have to lose weight, and it's like, I mean, you shouldn't have to lose weight to get, to be treated with respect and all of that stuff. Yeah, I agree with that. But I think like you should lose weight if it's genuinely affecting your quality of your life, and if it's making things harder for you, if it's making life harder for you, you should certainly go down that road and pursue losing weight, because I do believe that it is possible, but I also understand that it is incredibly difficult, and that I think that we should be as understanding as possible without being like, well, it's basically impossible, so you should just live your life. You should just do whatever you want to do. And I think that that's a fine line, and it's going to be a little bit different for everyone. And I don't fully even know what the answer is there. And so I thought that this was an interesting video. I hope that it doesn't seem like I'm trying to be too harsh. I have nothing against this person. They seem, nice by all accounts. I don't really know much about them. I think that this is an interesting kind of conversation to have, because especially when we're talking about just like, oh, you're privileged. And I'm like, yeah, I guess so. But what is that helping this conversation? How is that helping the person that wants to lose weight? But I don't know. You guys let me know what you think about this whole thing down in the comments section down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.